2000-year history of uh, various viruses, and which has, of course, a history of 5,000 years as far as current studies go. But those which were 5,000 years before has not been properly recorded, so we will forget about that. And in this, I'm sure you will not be able to read these things because the table is typed in very small letter. All that I want you to note is that flu, cholera, plague, and smallpox, some of the very dangerous virus afflictions have been repeatedly appearing, and some of these diseases even within a 20-year interval. So this shows that it has been almost impossible for us to eliminate these viruses. Next, the history here is actually shown in the form of balls of corona kind with sizes, just to indicate that the magnitude of some of the viruses, especially the ones here that you see, are the ones which have been very repeatedly coming. And this is yet another one. The size of these balls have been arranged in such a manner that the size of the death toll has been the criterion for the sizing. So you find in the right hand side picture the one line which is at the bottom and the small speck, that is actually the COVID-19. So its extent has not been as much as the largest one, which is actually the plague with 200 million casualties. So this is actually the picture of the virus we are fighting. And here is another picture about which I'll come to later. Let us go with the presentation further. Christopher Columbus is, as far as we all know, has found America, coming from Europe with soldiers, but they were not only carrying weapons, they were carrying diseases too. The then native population of America at the level of 60 million was reduced to 6 million by the end of that century. That means in another 8 years. Reasons: continental transfer of smallpox, measles, plague, influenza, and conflicts were only contributing very little. Of pandemic fallout, it is said that wage labor came into being only after the pandemics had decimated almost all the slave population. Before that, slaves were to do the work just for their food. And since they were not available, they had to actually pay more and get people to work. That is how it seems the wage labor came. Anyhow, socio-economic impacts of pandemics are many. But let us look at the situation from a totally different angle of maintaining a just and democratic healthcare system once COVID-19 is controlled. The novel coronavirus disease, or the COVID-19, has become a pandemic and is generating and deepening crisis in areas such as healthcare, humanitarian, and economic, threatening lives, livelihoods, and education of people around the world. Mostly, I emphasize on lives because health risk. It is directly fatality is involved. Livelihoods, lockdowns, and such other things are actually drastically affecting the livelihoods of the majority of the population of most of the countries. And education of students for months together are held at bay. So, of people all around the world. The old saying is, forewarned is forearmed, meaning if it looks cloudy, you can think of carrying an umbrella. What if there is no warning? Or is it that we have failed to take note of the warnings? It would appear so. So this is where I project this picture of this lady scientist, Zheng Lishi. She is called the Batwoman of China. Not only on China, the whole virology community take her as Batwoman because for years she has been actually researching on bats and the virus was carried by them and how they mutate, how they affect and things like that. She is currently 55 years old and she is a member of the Chinese Academy of Sciences and she is a senior division head at Wuhan Institute of Virology. And she had actually predicted a mutated corona virus impact, a variant of this almost 5 years back. All other predictions of virus attacks ahead has come only after she has actually warned. Now, let me continue the presentation again. On hindsight, we see that the world has been raging futile wars over a long period, fighting nature's invisible foot soldiers. In the past, in most cases, we have given up war and surrendered. The vaccines and medicines developed as quick responses invariably had been post-war and non-reusable as the invisible alien soldiers changed their weapons and their reach continuously. We are unprepared for the enigmatic impacts every time. The expertise, experience, and dedication of doctors and health workers are critical in winning this war on the medical front. Government interventions and effective coordination are of paramount importance and crucial in such scenarios, as is demonstrated by Kerala, India, and some other countries. Do we, as engineers, scientists, management experts, civil society organizations, and professional societies, have a space to work under such situations? My answer is yes, we do have. And more than that, it is a bounden responsibility. Professional groups can work together with the frontline fighters to respond to the immediate crisis and develop war plans and strategies for recovery and longer-term resilience. The recent COVID-19 challenges in Wuhan, South Korea, and Kerala have revealed that non-medical or non-pharmaceutical initiatives are effective in arresting the progress of the pandemic. Further, it is shown that they are effective only if the fight is taken to the level of each and every citizen. Pleasingly, engineers in Kerala, with experts from many other subject areas, have already got involved as warriors in this decisive battle. The non-medical interventions, such as effective transmission control in support of the frontline medical workers in the war front for containing and nullifying the life threat, and for the students and the public to continue their learning and livelihood activities, are spaces in which scientists, administrators, and engineers can enter, operate, and help win this fight. Now, let me also show some slides about certain initiatives that have actually come to our notice. I'm sure most of you are already aware of this, except for one or two. For example, some of the non-medical initiatives as innovations. This is actually done by a group of engineers, robotics, scientists and engineers, doctors, biomedical engineers, etc., under a banner called Breath of Hope. And IEEE Kerala section is actually supporting them with technical cooperation and advice, comments, and reviews, etc. So these are actually two respirator apparatus which can be used if there is no full-fledged ventilator, at least to relieve the symptomatic difficulties of breathing problems. There are two models are there developed by, I'm not actually giving you any qualitative evaluation or goodness or appropriateness of all these things, just to say that the scientific community and the technological community in Kerala as well as outside has been responding fairly well in finding out solutions. Just to give some examples. This is again what is called as a portable incubation chamber, which will actually help the medical personnel to attend to the patient without getting directly affected. This is actually making of masks, face shields, and more from the same group. So you find several products being developed, which are to be tested and accepted by the medical community, and then only they can be deployed, but at least attempts are made to meet the requirements. This is actually a half ventilator being designed. It is only in the design stage. This is a high flow ventilation aid. This is again being tried. Simulation work is going on. And once that is over, this could be used again to ease the sample taking and control of the symptoms. This is again a tunnel of life that has been created, that is to kind of activate the active viruses by proper means while passing through a tunnel. But these have certain other problems, and most of the governments have actually currently decided not to deploy them until further details about them are known. And on the right-hand bottom side is the team members who have actually worked on this. Yeah. Then this is again a safety hood for doctors that has been done so that there is a clear visibility and access by virus to their head or face or their nose, ears, etc. are actually prevented. That is, at least that is the aim. Such a thing is also being worked out. This is actually a localized version of the South Korean concept of sample collection safely by the health workers by remaining under a cubicle and then extending their hands alone with gloves and even taking sample from the patient's mouth, etc. So this has been actually, a Kerala version has been tried by the team in the Government Medical College, Kalamassery, and that has already been put to work. It is actually very cheap. I am told that it is only around 40,000 rupees for one unit, which is actually affordable in most sample taking centers. So let us continue with the presentation again. We have also reports that the Robotic Society under IEEE Kerala section with experts from medical and other areas as one group. Students and members of faculty at NIT Calicut, IIT Chennai, IIT Guwahati, IISc Bangalore, TKM College of Engineering, and several other institutions. They have worked on crash programs and come up with some solutions for disease management, crowd control, tracing of suspected patients' travel and contact history, makeshift ventilators, protective devices for doctors, nurses, and other healthcare personnel, police and local government officials, and volunteering civil society organizations. Then just now I showed the walk-in sample kiosk, which is called WISC, which has actually made a lot of newspaper headlines, not only in Kerala, but all over the world, even international from UK to US and various other European countries. Newspaper reports are coming on such initiatives. So, in addition to that, we also find that some kind of the Indian Navy unit in Kochi has come up with an airlifting facility. Drones have been used effectively in several African countries like Rwanda, Ghana, and other countries for reaching medicines and blood supply. Indian Railways, Kerala PWD, Tourism Department, and many others have very innovative hospital wards, isolation units, and quarantine chambers readied in thousands within just 1 or 2 weeks. The list is long, but my point is not. Plato is quoted to have stated a truth in necessity is the mother of invention. Many inventions were nurtured in the past by war efforts or as a post-war drive of innovations under constraints. Constraints could be time, resources, infrastructure, etc. The Mahindra company has rolled out an Ambu bag-based respirator support for COVID patients. The startup facilities in Kanyikode and Kalamassery are also facilitating such innovations in the products. This idea has been a favorite of several local innovations that I listed a little while back. IEEE Tehran section in Iran, with its chairman Hadi Moradi from Tehran University, has also attempted a similar thing and got ready on April 5th to provide relief to the tight situation prevailing now in Iran. This idea is, of course, not a totally new one. 10 years back at MIT USA, Professor Alexander H. Slocum did develop a model of affordable respiratory support device with Ambus. The reason why all these are referred to here is that all of them are under open source. Anybody, anywhere can utilize the idea and get the device done with appropriate modification. This is a must, as there is no time to get the ready-made ones, even if they are cheaper and on the shelf ready elsewhere in the globe. Further, according to availability of materials, fabricating facility, etc., the devices can be tailored differently with attendant benefits. For example, 3D printing of safe face masks is a thing debated very much. The transparent and non-porous head cover for medical staff is another item. The need to wear them continuously for several hours require that they are comfortable enough, and medical personnel who work in close proximity to the patient should have the confidence that nothing amiss would happen to endanger their safety. Innovators cannot take any chance in meeting these acceptance criteria, even under constraints and uncertainties. Yet another issue is the sophisticated medical instruments likely to be used under these conditions continuously and by different teams of medical personnel day in and day out. They might succumb due to wear and tear as well as through operators other than the regular ones. They cannot be attended by any expert other than the authorized service personnel of the companies. may not be readily available. This poses a grave situation in such emergencies during pandemics. Here is a lesson for us, especially by comparing the experience of developed countries, metropolitan cities of our country, and that of a tiny state like Kerala. According to Jason Hickel, an economic anthropologist at the University of London, in fact, he made the statement yesterday, Kerala's COVID-19 response has been, under quote, humane, caring, and successful. Whereas the first world systems, that is of the developed countries, are capital oriented. Even though it is too early to comment on success of the response, certain facts here are not. Our healthcare systems are centered around capital-oriented, sophisticated, diagnostic, interventionist, and curative equipment and expertise required to utilize them. And they cost very heavily, thereby limiting access to a few who can afford to pay, as well as offer help in very limited cases. Not embracing health complaints the majority of the people have. It is far from democratic. Okay. Hello. Hello. Oh, ഇല്ല മാറ്റുന്നില്ല ഇപ്പോഴ്. It's kept there. അത് കിടക്കാണ്, അവിടെ ഇരുന്നോട്ടെ. Okay. It is far from democratic, even in the so-called great democracies. Screen on so that people can see. Screen on office. Okay. Okay. So my point is, in pandemics or even in epidemics that kill or disable, there is nothing in these celebrated setups that can take care of the bulk of population that demands medical help. Next is the technologies, the machines themselves, and the delivery of healthcare is not at all open to. Even the buyer cannot touch them for maintenance, upgrading, or extending the service in a broad sense, making them not open source, even in the face of in-depth research and development in poorer countries and by their people. The research priorities in healthcare area in particular are lopsided. Most advancement in science and technology are usable only by large corporations or by governments with tight official secrecy covers.
ഇതുപോലെ ഇരിക്കും. അവള് പറയുന്നത് പിള്ളേർക്കെല്ലാം ഇങ്ങനെ എടുത്ത് വായിക്കും. ഒരു മീറ്റിംഗ് നടക്കുക തിരുവനന്തപുരത്ത്.
Specific to pandemics, in spite of well-advanced computing power, as well as data analytic power and superb simulation and modeling techniques, why is pandemic events not predicted? Even if predicted, why are they not considered or taken seriously? Next, a number of innovations are coming from our own youth. At least in my experience of 13 years in the judging panel of TechTop National Innovation Challenge since 2006, I have seen and helped to recognize many such cases, but seldom are they productionized or commercialized. Why? So what is required? We should look post-COVID-19 and promote innovations that would help democratize the healthcare system. That will be a total change from what we are currently aiming at and what we are currently satisfied with. We should not stop perfecting of these rapid response innovations once the tide is over. Looking at the repetition of pandemic waves in the past, cholera, plague, influenza or flu, TB, smallpox, it is clear that they return with added vigor. Every time we start from the scratch and temporary gains during the pandemic are forgotten. True, the villains continue to change. There is need for interdisciplinary brainstorming on every little bit of problem that we want to solve. Research should get redirected and evaluated based on these realities. This again is a tall order because our research establishments, the evaluation of research and their value being fixed is totally from a conventional platform which has not satisfied the needs of the larger population. In professional education, every student should select a problem to be solved by him or her independently before completing their course within a flexible curriculum and syllabus. That means for the whole 3-year or 4-year or 5-year period, they should be working on that problem, learning newer things other than those that are counted for written exams, and ultimately at the end get the confidence that they have solved the problem by themselves. That will actually allow confident professionals to go out of the educational institutions and indulge in solving problems of the people. Many new areas open in computing, robotics, data analysis, data management, etc., will find immediate application in healthcare interventions. For example, robotics in UV, disinfection, virus kill, contactless delivery of materials, food and medicine, testing, etc. Computers, forecasting, trend studies, maker spaces, hospital construction and conversion, safety devices, and fabrication of many new prototypes. Power systems of post-COVID era will have to ensure cyber security threats are fully taken care of, because under the new environment, we cannot actually allow the power system to fail under such severe conditions as now. If what will happen to the ventilators and so many other equipment to which many lives are actually connected with the narrow wall in between life and death. Then livelihoods are threatened. Offices, banks and shops, as well as farming, public transportation, etc., should have several kinds of security issues to its users and workers. Education also will have totally new formats. Innovations are expected in all these and many more areas. On the whole, old systems will have to be overhauled to meet newer specifications, convincing enough for the society. Because those specifications are to be evolved, and a new research culture, new culture of innovation, and new culture of governance and healthcare administration should start. The lessons, according to me, that we have to learn from the COVID-19 experience and this continued lockdown is probably that. Now I will again go over to 1 or 2 more slides. Yeah. Now I come to 2 quotations on man and nature. One is by the famous writer of past, Ayn Rand. Animals change themselves for the environment, but humans change the environment for themselves. Next is from father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi. There is enough in this world for everyone's need, but there is not enough for everyone's greed. So the question now is, these pandemics or these virus inflictions come and go, and they come again. we are unable to notice their arrival, and they give only very short notice to us. Can we overtake them? Let me say possibly not. But pandemics are the necessity or the mother of innovation for the future. We have to be focused on informed prediction so that we are guarded on left and right, that is medical and non-medical preparedness. Post COVID-19, we have to find a new normal for the living world. Innovate it in tune with nature. We all have a role in creating this new normal. Thank you. Now I am open for discussion.
Is there any questions? You can put as a chat in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, and your mic will be unmuted and you can speak.
Sir, I'm Bindu. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah. No, it's not something which I want to ask you, but I have heard of this. So I think you can equate this to something like, actually, when COVID virus attacks, it's like taking a habitat for itself. Humans have become the habitat for COVID virus. So someone was saying, as the humankind used to do in our past, we used to abuse our environment like anything. Even now we do that. So COVID virus is actually destroying its own habitat and then going on to the next habitat. So equalizing what humankind did to the world, COVID is also doing. But what happens in the recent future, we'll hope that COVID realizes that, and then it gets muted, and then and it seems that so many types of viruses are already there in our body. It used to attack us earlier, but now it has become, it understands in one way, if you can talk like that, it understands that the habitat is required for it. So we can only pray and hope that COVID also mutes itself in some way so that the habitat is not destroyed. So that is one way of it. And as you said, that the power system is very essential for the ventilators and all. Thank you for reminding that. That is very important. One thing that we forgot in the whole process is about the electricity and power system. We were all thanking the doctors and all the and other people. But actually the electrical engineers have also done their part very well. That's why the ventilators are still keeping the health of people. So I'm happy that this was reminded during your talk. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Regarding the virus space, I would say that there is why I put that quotation on man and nature is because there is this environmental link. If you look back for the last 2000 years, you will find that most of the time the Spanish flu, the cholera, and all these things, they were actually were the soldiers, and many wars were actually lost because soldiers were actually sick and gone with the virus attack, or sometimes bacteria. But anyhow, they are all in the same category for us. So, and these also come, and if you notice, you will find that wherever crowding is there, the people, material, and in a crowded space, people live and transact their business. This kind of virus and bacterial attacks have been extremely large. That means overtaxing of the service system. That has been the reason. Therefore, that is why I said a new normal should be there, which should actually take care of the on the kind of things that we have to do. Definitely, the environment and in drafting the specifications for the new norm. Any other?
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you have been telling, Sir Radhakrishnan,
Yes.
you have been telling that this pandemic is a necessity for the invention, but it comes once in 100 years only.
No. It has been coming at.
Precautions we are taking now. Next 100 years, people may not be knowing what are the precautions we have taken now.
Yeah, that is exactly my point.
Yeah.
Let us take the 21st century. After 2002, the SARS virus came, which is actually only 2% different from the COVID. Yeah, but that is what the virologists say, who have actually seen it through the microscope. While SARS was enacting in China, I was living there. I have actually seen the entire process. I was living there from 2001 to 2005, and this was actually 2002 to 2004. So the point is, then what all things have come? You have H1N1, you have Nipah, you have MERS, and whatnot. You will find that this 20 years, we have at least half a dozen attacks. And in everything, even though disease is slightly different, you exactly as has been pointed out by the previous discussant, there is actually a link with all these things, and this mutation speed as well as the mutation and the immunity the communities obtain around the residents of these carriers like bats and various other animals, mostly bats for most of these things. They have something to do in bringing in immunity. That is again one thing that we have to do during the post-COVID area. We should be actually doing things to strengthen the immunity of the people. Here, it is not because virus is not there that the rest of the people are safe. Only few lakhs are dying because others have got the immunity and they have actually had the sensibility to keep away from these things. That is where distancing and break the chain means. So that again is something.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, sir? I am Lali
Yes,
James
yes.
from
Yeah.
Vimal Jyoti Engineering College.
Okay.
Sir, I have a doubt. So what are the technical areas we have to focus to face another pandemic in Kerala, sir? Technical areas we have to focus to support the people, doctors, nurses, and the total area in Kerala to face another pandemic, sir.
Yeah, okay. This is very simple. And these engineers and pure scientists always forget this. We will have to look back at history. That is the kind of diseases that has actually inflicted us, at least in our recent memory, like 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, something like that, or even a century, what has actually troubled us and where exactly they have come and what had been the definite markers of distinct nature of those areas where this disease struck. So when we look back on hindsight and with analysis of sufficient amount of data, we will be able to find out certain mistakes, certain negligence that we have actually been doing. That will be very clear. So from that basis, any research that should be, as I pointed out here, should be with a kind of a brainstorming with multidisciplinary groups, not with engineers of that alone. If you are doing a work in communication, we have to actually discuss with many others on the various side impinges or side impacts those things will have. So this discussion at least in a smaller group of 4 or 5 different disciplines will actually bring about various other aspects of this particular work, so that we will be able to channel our work towards proper prediction and proper preparedness.
There is a question from Anirban Chakravarti.
Okay.
Is
Yes,
there any
Chakravarti.
need? Is there Anirban Chakravarti?
Yeah, please.
Is there any need of food bearing and sanitizing robo in isolation centers? I will repeat once again. Is there any need of food bearing and sanitizing robo in isolation centers? Second is, what is the feasibility of making such robots within a very low cost? Is anyone working on that?
Okay. In fact, robots in such hazardous conditions in Wuhan and Guangzhou in China this time, that is during January, February, December, January, February, in these places in China, robots have been extensively used, and they are autonomous robots as well. They go, knock at the door, and call out the room number and the name of the patient, and then tell that your medicine or your food or something is ready. Please take. It is in the first shelf or second shelf or third shelf. Don't touch the thing. Take only your thing. And when you are finished, please give a bell or ring. All these kinds of things. So this actually reduces the contamination load very much. And if you ask me about the need, there is need. Whether the feasibility of fabricating them at lower prices, definitely if that is a target and that is used by every hospital in dealing with contagious diseases, definitely the price will come down and the technologies will flourish and newer technologies will be used to bring down the cost and the maneuverability also to a good extent. So that is an area where we can invest now. Yes, any more?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
I'm Professor Janardhan from Calicut, your old student, sir.
Okay. Great. Come on.
Thank you very much for your informative and timely talk, and it's very much informative.
Okay.
But I think how long it may take in our country to control this COVID-19 virus, in your opinion, sir, because you are very much informed.
No. This is actually, it depends upon the people. That is why I said the campaign and the activity should be taken, fight should be taken to the level of each and every citizen. For example, we now know when in the whole of India, when the spread was actually very much limited, some people from somewhere came and did something wrong which should not have been done out of ignorance or out of negligence or whatever it is. But that immediately spiked. So the awareness creation angle, in fact, Kerala, our advantage is that our people are able to understand and obey. So you will find that this kind of awareness should be, that is where we should actually have sociologists and civil society organizations, always with engineers, professionals, even while thinking of designs or innovations, and even while developing new technologies, we should always keep them, because they will be our ears and what you call kind of our senses. So, so that kind of an interaction in every part of the country takes place. I think we continue at least within another month or two. That is my guess, but nobody can predict. It all depends
the
on
time,
the
exact time,
and the discipline that every one of us are able to maintain.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you sir, for the inspiring talk.
Harindralal, there are some questions in the chat box where you can actually take it forward from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah.
Can infrared or laser technology scan as well as destroy virus? Galaxy J4, that's the name.
Okay.
Can infrared or laser technology scan as well as destroy laser technology scan as well as destroy virus?
I understood the question. Actually, UV technology has been used this time in the COVID control, and but there is a debate which I have also seen technical fora that some people were actually doubting whether they would be effective. But one thing that appealed to me in that is not about its effectiveness. It could be made effective if it is not so now, but its cost has been little forbidding. It is a little high cost. We should think in terms of low cost devices that could actually kind of segregate and destroy or whatever, that kind of thing. But these technologies, we cannot actually write off as such. Newer research work will probably try to tame them to meet our needs if there is a continued innovation spree in our country. And I would say that it should be, every country should do this kind of thing, because locally specific and locally significant research work is of great importance in bringing down the cost as well as making the effectiveness to a higher degree.
Sir, two more questions.
Yeah, please.
One is from CM Ashtamurthy.
Yeah.
How will we decide this pandemic is over? Even one person can cause the harm. Also, if we contain the virus, it may take time. How the technical world can respond?
Yeah, it's actually, you know whether the pandemic is actually under control. You cannot say that it's completely eliminated. In fact, the definition of the word pandemic is actually, even if you have a disease which is actually stabilized and continuing for some time, that is not treated as a pandemic. Therefore, once we find that no new cases are coming for a reasonably good period, for example, the maturation period of this particular virus or the bacteria or whatever it is, for such period, no new cases come, and no complicated situations come, but they tried out and found successful certain medicines or certain treatments, if they are still continuing to work, in such a situation, we can say that the pandemic is over. Even if the disease is somewhere, that can be managed. In Europe this time and in America, the problem that has come is they have actually sophisticated facilities there, and they have actually very able expert doctors and paramedics. But the capacity, what you call the exceeded. If you have actually 100 doctors, you can probably, the same doctor can attend to 300 patients, maybe 400. But if it comes to 3,000, you cannot. And if you have actually 100 beds, maximum you can take 200 patients, 300 patients. But more than that, and none of them is actually cured and moving out, you will find that people will have to be lying in the streets or outside the buildings and die there. This is what happened during the plague, during the smallpox, and during all those Spanish flu and all those things. The histories and the photographs and all the recorded history says that when you exceed the capacity, you just cannot, even if you have a technology, you cannot manage. That is where this distancing and reducing the kind of contagion is of paramount importance. So finding out that point is not very difficult. Second part of the question is actually, I open each one of you, because the wisdom of all should come in answering that part of the question. Anything more?
Sir, 3 more questions.
Yeah,
BP Subhash,
yeah.
you said the pandemic is inevitable. Then we should always be prepared for that. Are we, make, are
Not
we, make,
inevitable.
are
I
we,
didn't-
are we making planning and strategies when it jumps up next?
I didn't say inevitable. It will always come because they have the smartness because they are also have some kind of an intelligence or a smartness within them for their survival and multiplication. So whenever you put some obstacle, they always find an alternate way. This is what we are also doing. When we are put with a problem, we find an alternate way. So that is innovation. So there is some kind of, even though thoughtful thing, there is an innovation going there also. So they will definitely come and come back because they will always, whatever obstacles you have put, they would actually acquire or learn some technique of how to bind with another living organism for them. And they always win because their multiplication capacity, as I have said, is 40 million times than that of human beings. So all that we can do is have very close kind of predictions, if not perfect predictions, close kind of predictions, and be prepared for such kind of an emergency in all sectors. And that way, we will not be taken by surprise when the next pandemic, or even if it is only an epidemic, or even if it is a new disease, like Nipah that has come here. Nipah was there earlier in Southeast Asia. It came here, but we could actually contain it immediately. So that is because the preparedness actually moved the very moment the case was detected. So that should be the kind of preparation.
Sir, 2 more questions. One is from Philip Cherian. Would like to know if we have to identify 3 top gaps we have to fill in terms of research that needs to be done in India now. What would it be? What could probably enable it?
I would say I don't want to number it 1, 2, 3. The main thing that we lack now, our research trust areas are in no way directly linked to the problems of our community. Many researchers want to publish papers in international journals or get a PhD or a higher degree so that will help in their career. More than that, even if it is a socially relevant work has been done and good results have been there, many of these researchers, after their scheduled research is over, they don't actually continue with them. And our systems do not give any value for doing that kind of work. They always value if your paper is published in more number of international journals and if you have actually a lot of citing index and all. I'm not saying that those are not required. They are required. They are good indicators. But for us, for meeting such requirements, the indicator should be whether it at least in part tries to meet the needs of the society, at least the contemporary needs of the society, and also for a little future. That is looking a little bit ahead, that kind of things. And for which there should be kind of a democratic intervention, without which this kind of things will not come. I still remember when the Panchayat resource mapping program was actually introduced in Kerala. At that time, I was in the science and technology, and one of our centers, the science center was used. The criticism that came was an R&D center of this magnitude. Should it actually go and take data of the panchayats? Is the time over?
One more last question.
Okay.
Rahul PS.
Yeah.
So what is your opinion of hot climate effect on COVID control?
Oh, that apparently we cannot actually comment. First of all, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a virologist, but even from the knowledge that I got by reading some of the research reports as well as newspaper reports, there is no clinching evidence to say that it is so. The only thing that is there is in colder climates, the spread appears to be much faster and more rigorous. Other places, but this has any scientific reason we don't know. It can be the particular region, the people have some immunity built. For example, in Yunnan province of China, the lady whose photo I showed, she did some research work and she found out a very dangerous virus in some of the bats she could actually collect from the caves there. And they went to the community and the old people, they collected the blood and actually tested them. And they found out that 2 persons out of the 6 samples taken had antibodies for against this particular things. But that fellow has never got any such influenza or any kind of virus disease in his whole life. So either he was having a silent attack, or the region developed some kind of an immunity, and that immunity could be the reason, but not the climate alone. So this has to be proved scientifically. I will not comment anything yes or no on that. But this is the observation.
One last question from Anish Satyan. What will be an immediate embedded system or electronic system required to be developed?
Wow. This is a subject where I'm not very strong, but definitely electronics has a lot of role in meeting the medical or the pharmaceutical requirements. They actually put some specs like time rate or the quantity rate or something like that. These are actually dimensions that we have to take care of in finding out some innovative solutions. So the electronic circuits can actually kind of help us simulate situations and study. Second thing, in administering the required changes, for example, the ambu back kind of respirator, at what speed and what rhythm it should be actually squeezed or the air should be given, how much and how the variation should be there. If the patient is weak, how it can actually intelligently try to manage or reduce or increase the kind of rate, etc. This only electronic circuits and electronic designs can take care of. So whatever may be the branch of electronics or the computing, such sciences, definitely they have a role, because those sciences have actually gone to that level with big data analysis and things like that. They will definitely find extremely useful solutions for situations that would emerge in future.
Thank you, Professor V.K. Damodaran, for the very inspiring talk, typical of Professor V.K.D. And
Thank you
we
very
look forward
much.
to you for more such talks and guidance from you. On 22nd of this month, next week, Wednesday, we have the second of the weekly webinar series by Satish Babu, Emerging Cybersecurity Concerns in the Post-COVID-19 Scenario. Emerging cybersecurity concerns in the post-COVID-19 scenario. Thank you for the participants for your valuable time and encouraging for these weekly programs, especially for the persons who have interacted, Professor Raleigh James, Professor Bindu, Anirban Chakrabarti, Professor Janardhanan, Ashtamurthy, BP Subhash, Philip Cherian, Rahul, Anish. Thank you all. See you next Wednesday this time. Good night to you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Good night.